I do not know what order all these videos are going to be in, but I have been working my way through extra dairy. So if you've been following along today in this video, we're going to be working on making some homemade butter. Well, with my abundance of milk, I've decided to take the jars that had the nice big thick cream lines, and we're going to pull some of that cream off, and we can do other things with the skim milk and the cream separately. So many people will ask me how I skim off my milk. Angle you in a little bit so you can kind of see how I do this. I've got myself a half-gallon jar because I'm hoping to get close to a half-gallon of cream so that I can make some butter, or maybe we could make some compound butter together. I've got a nice big ladle for my gallon-sized jar. I don't happen to have a funnel today. That's always helpful too. So I'm just going to try to be cautious. And all I do is I ladle off with a nice, clean, I like to use stainless steel when I can, but plastic is okay to use too. Stainless steel is just always my go-to when working with dairy. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to work on skimming off this cream from the top. Depending on how old your milk is, the older it is, the thicker the very top layer will get. That is your thick, heavy cream. That makes for amazing sour cream. And then as we work our way through, the cream will get thinner and thinner. And then how you know when you've reached the milk level is it will completely change color. So when we get to that point, I'll try to bring it so you can see it a little bit better. If you're watching on the screen, I'm trying to see, I think my cream line is about right here. So I've got a little ways to go before I'm going to get there. Now, if you want to clabber this, all you have to do is leave it out on the counter and it will clabber and make sour cream. I like to take cultured buttermilk and add a little of that to my jar to make my sour cream. I do like to pull off my cream for my coffee. I like to make ice cream as a fun treat. For whatever reason today, this is a little harder to see, but if you look at the milk, it kind of has two different colors to it. And that's how you know you've reached. You have to look really close. And that way I know I've started to reach the milk. And now I'll just move to my half gallons and keep working on this. And I pulled the cream off and I saved this half-gallon to the top, filled to the top jar of all cream. I've had it sitting out for several hours to get to room temperature, because what I'm going to use today is an antique butter churn. Here it is. I used to have a Jim Dandy, and I'm pretty sure I have a video on that, and I'll put it somewhere where you can see how I make butter with that. Today we're going to be making compound butter, which means we'll be adding in some flavorings, and I'm super excited to do that. So I'm going to grab my things and I'm going to situate the countertops, bring you in a little bit closer and show you the process of making homemade butter and then turning it into compound butter. So the first thing you want to do is make sure that all the equipment you're using is nice and clean. So we are ready to add in our cream. And see, I filled this to the tippy top. Looky there, friends. I was able to pour that in without making a huge mess. That is quite the accomplishment for me. Cream will kind of stick to the sides of your jar, and I want every last bit. And let's not forget that little bit. That's my thickest cream here at the top where the jar met. And the next part is so simple. Twist that on. I'm going to pull off this cord maybe. And I'm going to show you how you know for sure that you've got yourself an antique. Look at that cord end. My son's an electrician now. He may not approve of this. I may have to have this switched out. But for now, today, that's what we're going to use. I'm going to plug it in. Can you hear that? I don't know that you'll see much action right now just yet, but it is actually turning in there. Can you kind of see the vortex starting? Takes a little bit to get going. Here we are. Away she goes. So what I'll do is I will just let this sit on the counter and do its thing. This new to me antique one tends to stay better. The old one I had, ooh, look at her purr now. The old one I had would bounce across the countertops and you'd have to put towels around it. But this one tends to just kind of stay put and do its thing. Kind of put this off over to the side. And I want to show you a few other ingredients that you might want to go gather while your butter is getting ready. Whether you're spinning this and shaking it in a, you can take the cream and shake it in a jar and get the same thing, but you'll want a colander. I like using stainless steel. I prefer to put my butter in some sort of a muslin or something. This is actually a paint strainer bag that I use, and we'll want to sterilize all this stuff, but it fits over my colander and it just gets all the fine pieces of butter. We'll need to sterilize all this stuff, and you do that by just putting it in boiling water. And then I have my butter paddles. I really enjoy using those. Salt to taste. I prefer to use Himalayan sea salt. Okay, it has only been just a few minutes, and I want you to see there's been a change. There's like these huge air bubble looking things. It had turned into a whip topping. Let's just shut it off here for a minute. And I'm going to let you see what it looks like in here. I think we may have, we already have butter. We have missed the whip topping phase. It goes so quickly if it's at room temperature. Look at this. This is where it has separated. I'm sorry, we missed the whole, it gets fluffy whip topping. There we go. So with these big air pockets, I knew there had to be chunks of butter. And what I'm wanting to do now is whip it just moments more. And you can see the yellow butter and you can see the buttermilk. And I would like to get it to where it kind of all clumps together a little bit more so you can really see it separated. And the water is starting to splatter up here. That's when you know you've made your butter. It hasn't even been 10 minutes processed. With this type of machine, as long as you have it at room temperature, it goes by so quickly. And usually there is a difference in the noise when you reach the different phases. And looky there, I'm just sure we are ready to unplug and separate. I've gone over, I've got this, it's still just a little wet, which is fine because butter you rinse. So having it wet from being sterilized is totally fine. And what I want to do is I want to save the buttermilk. So I'm going to take this, I'm going to stick this, this one's too big. Here we go. I'm going to put it into this bowl. I'm going to pour this through here so that we can save this delicious sweet. This isn't going to be a sour. This is going to be a sweet buttermilk. and I love to bake with it. And then here, this is why I use this cloth. I'm going to twist this and get as much of this out before I go wash this butter. Look at all that buttermilk. Okay, so I've got the sink going with cold water because I want to have cold, cold, cold water. I'm going to take my jar that I rinsed out that had the original cream in it. And I'm going to put this buttermilk in there. We ended up with a lot of buttermilk. And I want to use this to make maybe some buttermilk and honey bread. What about some biscuits? I can think of all kinds of wonderful things to do with that. And so we have nearly a half a gallon of that. And then I bet we've got easily a pound of butter here. So I'll meet you over at the sink and I'll show you how I like to rinse the butter. Okay, so here I've got some ice water. And I want to make sure I've got this good and cold. So I'll put that butter right in that ice water. Now it's got kind of the texture of more like margarine or softened butter. And I want to make sure this is cold. And so I'm just going to work this butter with this ice water. There we go. Some people even put ice water back in their machines, their old butter churns. And you can see it's starting to firm up now, and I can put it into a bowl. And now I can kind of squeeze out some of that water. And that way, see how the water has changed color? I had not gotten all of the water separated from it, the milk proteins. And so by getting it here in this cold, cold water, I'm able to work with it so much better. And we can squeeze a little bit more of that out of there. Because see, we don't want... That's the thing that makes your butter go bad and sour, and nobody wants that. And it looks like the water is still milky enough that I want to do this again. So I'm going to rinse this out, dump it, and get some fresh to do it one more time. So you can see the water is nice and clear. We're going to put this butter in here. We're going to work it and see if we can't get a little bit more out. I would say 2 to 3 times of doing this, and you'll be able to see how much more clear that is. I feel much better about this. So if all you wanted was butter, you've got it. This is just regular butter. But many times we tend to like salted butter. So just to taste, I don't know, I'm going to probably put in a good tablespoon. And this is sea salt. That's what we prefer. Table salt's fine. All you have to do is mix it up. So I've got these butter paddles that I like to use. And it kind of helps me mix it. And because we use such cold ice water, our butter is nice and firm, so I know I'll be able to work it for a bit. And in opposite directions, I like to work the butter and kind of get that salt in there. Now, if this is where I was stopping, I would work with this just a tad bit more. However, we are making compound butter. We're making flavored butter. You could go sweet with this, and you could add honey, or you could add berries. It could be something delicious on like French toast or something. But I just went to the garden, and we have some steaks, and my son was talking about wanting rosemary sprigs and things like that. And I said, well, I'll just make some compound butter that we can put on top of the steak. So I'm going to grab just a bit of this fresh rosemary. And then I want to chop in some parsley. We just love parsley. And I'm just going to kind of give it a haircut, trying to stay away from the stems, but it's perfectly fine if you get some in there. And there'll be big pieces and small pieces. It doesn't matter. A little bit. And then I also grabbed some oregano. And just going to kind of put this in a bunch. And just to kind of bring out more flavors, I'm going to give it a quick chop. Oregano works really well if you grab the top and then pull down. Whoops. Too far to the top. But you may have saw that earlier. That's how I did that. And it just works really well. I'm excited about making this savory butter, but we love strawberry butter, blueberry butter, blackberry butter, and of course, always a hit when you make the honey butter. I'm going to save some of these sprigs for my son, but I think I want to put in just a tad bit more of the rosemary. So I'll pull those right off. And now I'm going to get in there just like I did before with my clean hands. And we are going to mix this up. So we'll have our salt and our herbs. What is your favorite way to use herbed butter? Do you use it in your cooking when you make dinner rolls? Do you spread it on top? Do you do like I do and like to put it on your roast and your steak? I love to do this at Thanksgiving time with our turkeys. I love to make an herbed butter to rub all over that. I'm just going to grab it and I'm just going to put it in a container for now. You could weigh this out and make it into sticks and bake with it. But I know we're going to use this up within the next week. So I'm just going to put it in this container. I'll spread it out. I don't want any air pockets. That'll help keep it fresher longer. So I want to spread all the sides. Fresh, homemade, herbed butter from start to finish. Milking the cow, gathering the herbs in the garden. All from my farm. Okay, hold on before you get all worked up about this and you think, I don't have a dairy cow, I don't have a butter churn. You absolutely can do this at home yourself. All you have to do is get a mason jar with a lid, go out to the store, buy yourself a pint of cream, heavy whipping cream, put it in a quart-sized jar and just shake it. Heck, have the kids toss it around and move it around. Gently, of course, but make it into a game. Before you know it, you'll have your own butter too. And yes, you can do this at home with store-bought ingredients if that's what you have available to you. Anybody can make their own homemade butter, compound butter at home. Just like this. What recipe should I use? I'm thinking this might go good on some mashed potatoes. What do you think? How do you like to use butter, compound butter, delicious homemade butter, or store-bought butter? I want to know in the comments below. In our butter, we've got our buttermilk, and I thought that I would make some buttermilk and honey bread, which I love, but I got a call that I need to be babysitter, and I never want to turn down that time with grandbaby. So we're going to take and we're going to freeze dry our buttermilk, pour what I can in this tray of the buttermilk. But I think I want to go ahead and scrape this off the sides. give it a little stir. And we'll add this into the tray. Gotta go slowly or you'll spill. Ask me how I know. So this is maybe 6 cups of buttermilk here. My freeze dryer is full and all I have to do is shut the door, close the valve, push start. We're ready to go. And we will have our very own homemade buttermilk powder from Sweet Butter. Here it is, our freeze-dried buttermilk. This stuff is light and fluffy. I'm so excited to have my own buttermilk, sweet buttermilk, mind you, because it was not a cultured butter. I'm excited to have it on the shelf just for recipe baking, because sometimes you go and you get a thing of buttermilk in the store and you think, oh, what am I going to do with the rest of it? Yes, you can freeze it, but this option will be shelf stable. So if you have a freeze dryer or you know someone who has a freeze dryer, save your buttermilk when you make your butter or buy from the store and freeze dry it. Now, it's not going to have a 25-year shelf life like other freeze-dried products just because it's the dairy, but I'm so excited about this. Raw buttermilk from my farm. So what I'm doing is I'm just taking the handle of a wooden spoon, shoving it down in here, and I will get this all compacted and it'll be a nice fine powder. I'll add a desiccant and we will seal it and I'll have it on the shelf. There you go. Because we are downstairs, I'm going to go ahead and use my Avid Armor today. Oh, I love my Avid Armor. If you're not familiar with what that is, check out some of the videos I have. I have one explaining all about the day I got to open it. But I'm going to use it to seal. This is the best seal you'll ever get. I have some handheld sealers that I like to use for short-term storage. Long-term, always the Avid Armor. So we're going to turn this on, set it to canister, and just in a matter of seconds, we're going to get this sealed up. Okay. You hear that seal? And look at this. You can't get that off without prying it. So now my buttermilk can last on the shelf. You want to do like you do with dehydrated stuff, and you still want to kind of condition it. See how I pressed all that down there that I pressed too hard? There, see, we need to shake it up, loosen it up. And now I'm ready to put this on the shelf and store it. Well, actually, you don't even need the lid. Store this on the shelf and use it as I need it. Thanks so much for tagging along with me while I worked through some of my dairy and we made some delicious herb butter and freeze-dried some buttermilk. See you next time.